Okay. There were 3 of us that day. Yeah, I'm sure of it. I knew there were only 3 of us that day. You see, back when I was 17 years old, which wasn't too long ago, um, I was on a mission trip with a team to Seoul, Korea. I was the youngest on the mission team, and I'd been asked to go and be a part of it. And one of the reasons is to tell the gospel and story. So it was an amazing trip. 2 weeks, it was fabulous, and it was life changing for me in a lot of reasons. But the story I'm going to tell you right now is life changing, maybe for me more than anything else I've ever experienced. And I've been on tons of mission trips. So the team we were put together, we were going to orphanages and prisons and schools and little villages. Wherever the team was sent, we went. So the last day of the trip, everybody was talking the night before about this is going to be awesome because it's our last day before we go back to the good old USA, and we couldn't wait. We're all going to go eat at this fantastic restaurant, hang out in the city of Seoul, Korea for a while, and then come back and pack and be ready to go the next day. So I came in that morning out of my little cubicle. I don't know if you've ever seen the show MASH. It was filmed in Korea, which I bet most of you have never seen MASH. That shows you how young you are and how old I am. But, so in Korea, you have a little cubicle for your room. There's a mattress that's less than a twin size bed, and they're always on the floor, super clean. You take your shoes off, and you have a sliding, just like a paper door. And that's where you sleep, and that's your bedroom. So I came out of my little cubicle, I went in, I was like pumped, ready to go eat. This is gonna be awesome, it's gonna be the last day. I can't wait. Everybody's out there milling around. And the head of the mission team, Mr. Pack, who's Korean, he's like, Jan, come here, come here, come here. He said, have you looked to see what your assignment is for today? And I was like, what? What do you mean assignment? This is the last day, we're going to eat, I'm going with the team. He goes, no, you have an assignment. You need to go check the board and see where you're going today. So I was like, all right. So I went over and looked at the board, and the board had me, Gary, who was 18, and he was from Nebraska or some state. I guess that's a state. And Mr. Kim, who was one of the Korean interpreters for the trip, he was the youngest. So we were the 3 youngest of the whole team. And it said that they were going to send us to Shunwodong prison, a men's prison, for the day. So I was like, I went back to Mr. Peck and I said, Mr. Peck, this has to be a mistake. You're sending me, Gary, and Mr. Kim. We're the youngest of the whole team. You're not even sending an adult. What are you doing? And he was like, look, Jan, he said, you ought to have done this the whole trip. You know how to do this. I have all the confidence in you. I'm not sending an adult. Go. And y'all better hurry because you got to catch the bus. So I ran into my cubicle to get whatever it was I needed, and I remember I got down on my knees and I was like, look, Lord, this isn't good. I'm scared to death, Father. I really am. And, you know, if you want me to do anything today, you're going to have to do it because I am so scared. Please help me not be scared. In Jesus' name, amen. And I was out the door, and Pack and Gary and Kim were yelling at me, come on, Jack, come on. We went running out the door, down the hill, and jumped on the bus. We got in the bus. I thought I was going to throw up because I was so nervous. And I was like, you know, this isn't the way it's supposed to work. Lord, you're supposed to answer this prayer, and you didn't answer it. I'm still very scared. And in fact, maybe more scared now than I was before I prayed. I don't understand this, Jesus. But okay. So we start, it's about a 2-hour bus ride. Mr. Kim is sitting next to me, Gary's behind us, and Mr. Kim is just talking like this the whole time, non-stop. And I just wanted him to be quiet because I'm so nervous. But he was just, As a matter of fact, and again, this was a long time ago, and I was like 50 pounds lighter, Mr. Kim proposed marriage to me on the bus on the way, and I'm like, no, what are you talking about? So the bus finally pulls up at this place. He opens the door and he said, this is as far as I can go, guys. And so Mr. Kim's like, well, where are we supposed to go? And he said, grab a taxi. They can take you the rest of the way. So we get in a taxi, and it's a little village, and it's all mud and dirt, and get in a taxi. We need to go to Shunwodong prison. So the taxi driver's like, what? Shunwodong prison? And we're like, yeah, Mr. Kim is saying, yeah, that's where we're going. So we riding the taxi, not long, maybe 30 minutes. And he opens the door in the middle of this tiny little village, and he said, "This is as far as I can go. It's as far as anybody can go. Y'all are gonna have to walk the rest of the way." So we get out of the cab, and Mr. Kim says, "Where is it?" The cab driver leans out the window and he points. He said, "There, up there on top of that mountain, about 1.5 miles away. Got to go through the rice paddy and walk up to the top of the mountain. You can't miss it. It's the only prison for miles around." So we start walking, and we were walking through the rice paddies, and you could see this mountain. It was like a small mountain or a big hill, kind of like a stone mountain. So you can see it way off in the distance. So we're walking through the rice paddies, which are gorgeous, just incredible green, and we're going through the rice paddies, and some of it's wet, so we're kind of sloshing through the rice paddies. We did that for about a mile, and the Korean women are working in the fields, and there are water buffalo working in the fields. It was really cool. We got closer and closer to this mountain or hill or whatever, and we got to the bottom of it, and sure enough, you could look up and you could see the top was completely barren. No trees, no greenery, nothing. It was just dirt and a prison on top of it. So we start up the mountain. Mr. Kim's not yakking anymore. He's very quiet. Gary's very quiet, and I'm very quiet, because all three of us are beginning to feel a sense of anxiety. What are we doing? Wow, there's this prison, this men's prison. So we get to the top of the hill, and there's, it's not a huge prison, but there's a big brick kind of thing, concrete, huge wall, very high, maybe 8-9 feet around the outside of the prison. There's big iron gates in the front, and in front of the iron gates on the outside are 2 soldiers with some kind of big old guns that they're holding. So when we get up there, we see these soldiers, we see this prison, and I turn to Kim and Gary and I said, "Hey, do y'all think we better pray before we go in?" And they're like, "Mm-hmm. Okay, do you want me to pray?" And they were like, "Mm-hmm." Okay, fine. So we grabbed each other's hands. There's 3 of us little people on top of this hill with the guards and their big guns behind us, and I prayed. That's what I prayed. "Lord, we're scared to death. If you want these men to know anything about you today, you're going to have to do it, because we can't. Amen." And the guards were hurling at Mr. Kim, saying, "Come, come, come." So open the gates, and in we go. And it's all dirt. They take us into the warden's office. We sit down in the warden's office waiting for them to assemble the men, and I'm sitting in that chair holding on to the armrest. A little while later, the soldiers came in. They told the warden, they said, "They're ready. Tell them to come on." And I just kind of like was glued to that chair, and they had to chisel me off the chair. "Come on, Jan, it's going to be okay." So we go walking out. The second we walk out of the warden's office, out in the dirt, or maybe 75, 80 prison men, all in prison suits with big numbers on the back of them, and they're sitting on the ground with their legs crossed, sitting up straight, their hands like this, and nobody's saying a word. Perfect rows. We had to walk around them. We walk into a small building that had the iron doors open like this, so that the men that are sitting out in the dirt can see us and hear us. And we walked in, and it was a very narrow building. All down one side were cells this direction. And you could see men holding onto the bars, and their faces, pressing up at the bars, trying to see around the bars and see what was going on. There were men, because it was so narrow, there was maybe 6 men across this way, sitting on the floor again with their legs crossed, prison garb, like this, nobody saying a sound, stacked all the way down the hall as far as you could see on this side. We were standing here on this side all the way down with solitary confinement. So iron doors all the way down, and little slits at the bottom of the iron doors that if they were putting food in for these prisoners, they could lift the flap up and slide the food in and out. But these guys apparently were on their stomachs, and they'd push the flaps up with their fingers because they were trying to see. It was like eyeballs all the way down on the floor, and they were trying to be able to see us. Guards everywhere with guns. And we sat down, I looked at all these men. I'm the only female for miles and miles and miles. And I was sitting in my chair and I was like, Jesus, what am I going to say to these men in prison? Jan, it's your turn. Oh, you're going first. Okay. So I get up, Mr. Kim gets with me because he's interpreting for me. And I said, first thing I said was, gentlemen, Jesus saman hamnida, which means Jesus loves you. And then I told him about how much Jesus loved him. I told him how much he had done for them, that he died on the cross for them, and what they did to him, they spit on him. And I said, I bet you guys have been spit on before. They beat him, they whipped him, and you could just see these guys, just their eyes and their minds just barreling in. I said, I bet you guys know what it feels like to be beaten. He was alone, he was by himself, they ran nails in his hands, they made fun of him, they hit him with sticks. Maybe some of you guys can relate to that too, but he did it in obedience to his Father, and because he loves you and because he loves me. And guys, you're not free here. I know when we leave, you're going to be locked back up. Guys sitting out here, you all here, you guys obviously haven't been let out of your cells back here. I said, you're not free here. Well, you know what? Jesus can give you freedom. He can give you eternal freedom. And I shared that with him for a little while. Then I sat down and I went over to Gary and I was like, I patted Gary on the back and I said, Gary, it's a breeze, man. Go for it, because I was done. So Gary gets up. He's never preached a sermon in his life. 18 years old, from that country or state or whatever, Nebraska, way out there in the West. And Gary got up, and I'm telling you, here's this 18-year-old young man, and he gave the most beautiful sermon, one of the most beautiful, simple sermons I've ever heard. It was amazing. And he was finished. I don't know how many of you that are watching this go to church or ever have been to church. Hope you do. But in church, at the end, they usually give an invitation if anybody wants to know more about the Lord. Organ plays, or the praise bands, or the guitars or whatever, and people have a chance to come forward. And it's very upbeat, happy, convicting time. But we didn't have an organ or a praise band or anything. So when Gary's finished preaching, he just looked at the guys and he just simply said, men, if you want to give your life to Jesus, if you want to be baptized, if you want to get to know him more, I guess just get up and come down here. And he stepped back, and we waited. And there was no sound. Nobody moved. And then one man had tears streaming down his face, and he stood up. And he had to kind of push people out of the way to make his way down. It took a lot of courage for him to do that. And when he came down, then another one got up. And another one, and you could hear people sniffing, and you could see these grown men with tears coming down their face. They wanted more. They wanted to know the Lord. And they began to come up, down, and when they got to this part, the soldiers that were down there would set their guns down, and they would grab these men, they would throw them around, and they'd throw them up against the wall, and they would write the number down off their back, and then they would turn them around, throw them back, and tell them not to budge. When they'd finished coming, there was 27 Korean men that had come down, wanting to know Jesus, some of them wanting to be baptized, and some of them convicted and just wanting to know more. And so when we were done, they said, we want you guys to leave first. Thank you for coming before we move any of these prisoners. And these guards will escort you out. So we start out the building. We're going out. We're coming around. You could hear a pin drop. Nobody's talking. Nobody's moving. They're waiting for us to leave. And as we come out, we pass, they didn't have toilets. So there's open sewage right outside of all the prison windows, and flies and maggots, and it smelled. And above that, there were few windows with bars. And so as we're going out and the guards are escorting us, a prisoner ran and he grabbed the bars, and he's screaming. He's just yelling at us at the top of his lung and just screaming and screaming. It scared me to death. And I was like, ah! And I ran behind Mr. Kim, and he was like, it's okay, Jen, it's okay. Come on. And I was like, I'm not. He said, come on. And so we walked over, and I remember walking over there and looking up, and it was hot, it's summer, and the smell was, I looked up, and the man was holding onto the bars with tears coming down his face, and he said, please, please. He said, I could hear you all. I could hear you talking about Jesus, but the guards refused to unlock my door. I want to know him. I want to know the Lord. Take my number down. Well, we didn't have anything to write on, but he gave us the number. And I guarantee you, all three of us remembered it. And as we were leaving, Mr. Kim, of course, in Korean, he looked up at him and he said, you know what? The chaplain's coming back. When he comes back, I'm going to give him your number, and he's going to talk to you, all the other men, and I'm going to be certain that the warden will let you out to talk to him as well, because many of the men want to be baptized. I don't know what you're ready for, but we'll take care of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we walk out, the guards close the gates, they lock them up, and we're standing on top of the hill, and I look out, and it was the most gorgeous view you could ever see. You could see all over Korea. And all three of us start down that hill. Nobody's talking because we're so overwhelmed. But as we're walking down that mountain, I thought there were three of us that day. I knew there were three of us as we walked in. Me, Gary, Mr. Kim. But I was wrong. It was always four. Always. And Jesus did answer my prayer. And he gave us the perfect words to say, and he was with us the whole time, and he took the fear away when it was time to take the fear away. It was always four. So for the rest of my life, I'll never forget, and even today, I don't walk alone, ever. He's beside me, in front of me, behind me, above me. Jesus is everywhere. I love him, and I'm so thankful for that experience. It was awesome. All right, the end.
That's great.
All right?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Okay.
So we are at 17 minutes right now. I know.
Woo! All right. Okay. So if I just tell some funny things maybe that happened in Korea, and then I can tell the story of little Peter, and I think we'll fill it. I hope we'll fill it. Or should I go straight into the story of little Peter first?
Like little Peter from the Bible?
There really isn't a little Peter in the Bible, but it's about a fictional character in the Bible.
Okay. Yeah, you can do the funny stories and then go into little Peter.
Is that what you want to do?
Sure.
Okay, all right, here we go. So, since I was talking about Korea before, there were some kind of cool things that happened. Like one day we were all sitting at this huge table, and we were having lunch, and there were all these Korean ministers and interpreters all sitting at the table, and they brought out these steaming plates of what looked like kung fu. I don't know if that's a real kung pao or something like that. Big old plates, and it looked like Chinese food, and it looked awesome. It was steaming, and so we were all digging in. I was digging in, and I took a bite of something, and I was like, oh man, what's that? And I was rolling around in my mouth, and I spit it in my hand, and I was like, wow, look, this is awesome, everybody, look. And I said, there's a pearl, a beautiful white pearl in my food, and I'm showing it around, and all of the Korean people at the table just burst out laughing. They're laughing and laughing. I'm like, what is so funny about this pearl? And my interpreter leans over and he goes, Jen, it's not a pearl. I was like, sure looks like a pearl, what is it? And he said, it's an octopus eyeball. And I went, yeah! And I dropped it back on the plate, but then, this is the thing that really got me. I mean, probably at least 6 people hollered out, can I have it? I said, sure. I passed it down, I popped it in their mouth, and they ate it. And then, there was one time I was in a village in Korea, and by village I mean like little tents, basically, is what they lived in. It was dirt floors, and it was tents. And I was hanging out with the teenagers all week, and I'd gotten to know them, and it was pretty cool. So we were walking through this little village, and I made the comment, I'm really thirsty. And so my interpreter was saying, well, let's just keep walking 2 or 3 blocks down the road. There's this little bitty store, and they'll have something there you can get to drink. So we start, but a couple of the teenagers said, no, stop. We got something you can drink. We got it. So I'd been told, you know, if you're going to be on this mission team, if somebody offers you something, especially if it's food and they're very poor, you don't turn it down. So I was like, no, that's okay. And they're like, come on. My interpreter gave me the look like, you need to go. So I was like, okay, I'm going. So we walk a couple of blocks, and again, it's hot in the dirt, and we go to this tent, and we're in the back of the tent, and this young teenage girl starts digging in the ground. And so I'm thinking, I'm thirsty, and she's digging in the ground. What in the world? So she keeps digging, and she pulls out what looks like an egg. And my interpreter said, yes, that's an egg. And the girl's like, oh, please. You know, she was telling my interpreter, please, this is for you. I know you're thirsty. And my interpreter goes, Jan, that is a fermented egg that has been in the ground for a couple of weeks. And it's precious to these people. Took the egg and they popped a hole in it. I was like, oh, thank you so much. I sucked it out and somehow I got it down without having it come back up. So that was one thing. Let's see. Well, this was cool. So one of our interpreters was the head chaplain in the army in Korea. I'm talking the chaplain over all the army chaplains in all of Korea in the service. So he was super well known, very respected. Great guy. So we were going to this prison, and they said this is a political prison for officers that have been in different parts of the service in Korea who've gotten in trouble with the government. Maybe they said something that the government didn't like. But they're in prison, so it's called a political prison. But they're just like prisoners. They had the prison outfits on and their heads shaved and all that. And so he said, that's where we're going. So there was a whole bunch of us on the team that day. And so we walked in, and we actually walked up on a stage at this prison. It was real old. And then there were seated on the floor, just like the other prison, but probably about 300 to 400 servicemen that were high ups, you know, very well educated, and they're sitting on the floor again, stacked. Nobody's making a sound, and there's guards all around with their guns on the walls. So we go in and we sit down. Mr. Pack, the chaplain over all these other chaplains, has not walked in yet. And all of a sudden, we hear this rustling. All the men, there's whispering, and they're all looking, and they're all pointing. Coming up the steps to the stage is Mr. Pack. That was also the man that was in charge of all of us, as the chaplain. And as he walked up on stage, there's all this wrestling and noise. People are talking. These men who are supposed to be very quiet, and they're pointing. As he makes it to the middle of the stage, men start standing up all over the place and saluting him. They knew him. They respected him, and they wanted to show him honor. He had helped them. He had helped their families, so many of them in that room when they were taken to prison, and they wanted to respect him and show him honor. It was very humbling to watch that happen. And the guards were good for about 15 seconds, and then they began to go over and butt these guys with the ends of the guns and telling them, sit down, sit down, sit down. And the guys knew these men knew they would probably get in trouble, but it was more important for them to take a stand and honor this man who had done so much for them in the service. And so that was just really a very special moment for us to get to watch. That was a cool thing. All right. Those are all my little stories right there.
Okay, let's see.
Are those interesting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those were great. Okay, so Korea, was that a mission trip that you were going on, that you went on when you were in Korea? Was that a mission trip?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What, do you have any interesting other stories about different mission trips that are worth telling? Whether it's just like funny stories that happened, or
Oh yeah, you know I got a ton of
Yeah.
stories.
so, or you could do, didn't you tell one when you went scuba diving?
Yeah,
You want to tell that one?
I can. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. What are we at?
25.
Okay, we're getting close. All right, scuba diving. Okay, that's not long, but yeah. All right, you ready?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so I love to scuba dive. I love to be under the water. I love to go all the way down. I like to be down there. I'm actually considered legally deaf. So when I go in the water, I can hear. I know that's weird, but if schools of fish are going by, I can hear them because I don't know I don't know what the word is. The acoustical thing in the water. I don't know, but it works. So I just love being down there. It's like another whole world. I love the fact that scuba diving to me is a little bit scary. I like that. So we were going out on a dive and actually wasn't too far off of Panama City Beach. And this was a deep dive. This was our first really deep dive. I think it was like 80 feet down, which is very deep. So you have to have a dive partner, and my two boys were going down as partners. My husband chickened out, and he's like, I'm not going that deep. So the dive master on the ship, who's a young guy, said, I'll go down with you, Jan. So we get geared up, and the swells that day were really, really big. So actually my son got seasick, and he started throwing up. And I was like, well, he can't dive. And the dive master goes, Mike, jump in the water. And I was like, don't tell him jump in the water with all this equipment on. He's trying to throw up. Jump in the water, trust me. So Mike goes off backwards, he jumps in the water, and there's a weird thing. Once you're in the water and you're in those swells, it equalizes you, and it made him not be nauseated anymore or throw up. It was so cool. So we were going down to actually dive in a small sunken ship. We were going to be able to dive through the ship and around the ship, and so this was a really cool thing. So my two boys, put the regulators in, and down they go. And there's a guide rope. So they were going down the rope, and you have to go slow because of the bends and all this stuff. So they go down the rope, and they take off. And so my dive master's still gearing up because he thought David, my husband, was going to go with me. So it's taking a minute. And he said, Jan, just go on and get in the water, hang on to the rope, and wait for me. I was like, okay. So I go off the back of the boat. I get in. I'm bobbing up and down. The swells are too big because it's trying to, ram me into the boat. So I was like, okay, I need to go under. So put my regulator in, and I go down, 3 or 4 feet under the water and just hang on to the rope. So I'm holding on to the rope, and I'm looking around, and right off here, maybe 4 feet away from me, is this, it wasn't huge. It was a good-sized fish. It had this really scary, mean look on its face. It had teeth, and it was staring right at me. It was looking really mean and scary, and so I'm like, I don't like that fish. I go back up. I say, hurry up, Joe, get in the water. There's a really mean, scary fish down here. He's like, Jim, just go under. So, okay, but hurry. So I go back under, and this time I look over, and now he's not 4 feet away. He's like 2 feet away from my face. Really mean, scary fish. So I go back up and like, Joe, get down there. There's a really mean, scary fish, and I'm telling you he's going to get me. He's like, okay, Jim. So he gets in. We get in, and he gets in front of me, and we start down. So we're going down the rope, and as we're going down the rope, all of a sudden, wham! Something just whams me from the back of my head. Just bam! I knew before I even turned around, it's that mean, scary fish. So I'm holding on the rope, and I turn around, and sure enough, there he is. He's right there, and he rams right into my head. And so I'm like, I'm getting out of here, so I'm going down the rope as fast as I can. We get down, the fish leaves me alone, and it's beautiful. It's awesome. There's this big ship. Not a big ship, it's a small little boat kind of thing. It has a wheelhouse, a couple of bedrooms, or rooms in it, bathrooms. So it's decent size. But it's been down there for quite a while, and the top of it is just covered with beautiful yellow and red, like sea urchins. They look like ginormous caterpillars. They're beautiful, and they're, slowly going across that part of the boat. And so I'm just so into it, watching that. I look around, I can't see my boys. They got to be further up. Maybe they're even in the wheelhouse now of the ship. Then all of a sudden I look up, and I don't know, maybe 15 feet, 12 feet above me is this huge shark. Now, this is the first time I've seen a shark diving. This thing is a monster. You couldn't get your arms around him. Maybe 6 feet long. And Joe, my dive master, sees it at the same time I do. So he reaches out, he gives me the universal sign for shark, but he didn't have to tell me that. I knew it. And he just goes like this, which means when you see a shark, you just be still. Well, your instinct is not to be still. Your instinct is like, I'm getting the heck out of here and swimming as fast as I can. He's like, show me be still. So we're just floating. Boat's below us, it's beautiful. I'm looking up and there's this monster shark. It's just taking its time. It doesn't see us. If it did, it didn't care. Just very, very slowly goes on over. And I don't see my boys, so as a mom, I'm starting to panic. I start looking around, where are my boys in my brain? Of course, I can't talk. Where's my boys? Where are my boys? So I started praying, Lord, please, I can't see them. You can. You can see anything. Please make sure they're safe, Lord. Please take care of them. Shark's gone. Joe looks at me, says, come on. So we swim around the boat, and we go in the ship to the wheelhouse where the controls are to close the boat. So you've got a cabin. You've got a roof above you, and that was really cool. I still don't see my guys. That Lord, please help them to be okay. And then Joe swims over to the stairs, and you can see the first couple of steps, and it's just dark. And Joe's like, come on. I'm looking down, and you can't see anything but black. I'm like, I'm not doing that. He's like, come on. And he starts down. I'm not going to be left there by myself. So I start swimming in, and we swim down the steps. And you come out to another part of the ship, and actually it opens up to the outside. And it was fantastic. It was phenomenal.
Wow.
We swam down there as long as we could till our time was up, our air was up. Start up the ropes, and you have to go up slow and stop and slow and stop so you don't get the bends. But as I'm going up, I was just thinking, man, I could see my boys. They were at the top fixing to get on the ship. And I was just thinking, wow, God, you do stuff everywhere. On top, in the water, underneath, and you see us the whole time, and you're with us the whole time. And so we got on the boat, and it was probably my favorite dive of all times. I loved it.
That's so cool. Let's see. We have time for probably one more, because we're at 32 minutes.
32?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're close.
Yes.
Let's see. I can tell some more mission stories. That'd be better, I think, than telling the Bible story.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
So another mission trip, I was in charge, and I was obviously a little bit older. I got all the teenagers from our school on our mission team. We're going to Mexico. And we had been asked to go into the high schools and speak against suicide. There have been a lot of suicides in the little bitty villages. There's not a whole lot of hope there at that time. That was quite a years back. In these little tiny villages, there's just not a lot of hope, and these teenagers don't have much of anything. So they had a lot of teenage suicides. Very sad. So we had prepared for that. And that's what we were going into the schools. One of the things we were going into the schools to talk against was suicide. So we got to the airport, Mexican airport, and for whatever reason, we'd been before, but they decided they were going to go through everybody's luggage. So they open it up, everybody's, about 25 of us on the team, and they start going through stuff. And Miss Chris, who's the missionary down there, she's like, no, I don't know why they're doing this. She's looking at me and she's like, Jan, I don't know why. Let me see what's going on. So she walked over and she starts chatting with the agents, and she says, hey, guys, to the people going through our bags, the airline agents, she said, have y'all heard about the suicides? And she named several of the cities, like Laredo and several others. And they were like, well, yeah, everybody's heard of those suicides. And she said, you see that team of teenagers over there? They're going into the high schools to talk to the kids about it and try to put a stop to it. That's all she said. They put everything back in our suitcases, zipped them up, and they said, go.
Wow.
So we went and went to a lot of the high schools, and it was a very interesting trip. We went to one, and when we walked in, the teenagers, it was kind of a rough area. So the Mexican teenagers really didn't want to have anything to do with us at first. So we're doing a program, we're on stage, it's outdoors. We've got some pretty serious skits. We got some kids on our group that that were talking about when they had felt suicidal before and how to get help. And we started to do this one skit that was really powerful, and it's scary. So there's a bunch of teenagers, Mexican teenagers back here, and they're not going to be quiet, and they wouldn't come up and sit. But when that skit started, it was just like a magnet, and they stopped talking, and it just drew them, and they sat and they were glued. And at the end of this skit, it shows that Jesus has overcome Satan and he kills Satan. And at the end of the skit, when Jesus kills Satan to stop the suicide, those teenagers jumped out of their seats and they cheered. But there's a woman on the front row when I was talking about the signs to look for. If you care about somebody, here are the signs to look for if somebody's suicidal. And she was just crying through the whole thing. And we weren't finished because I'd invited a bunch of the parents in the area to come too. And when we were finished, the principal came and got us and said, this lady needs to talk to you and her friend. So they pulled us in the little office, and the woman said, my daughter, 6 weeks ago, hung herself in the village. If you'd been here 6 weeks earlier, she might still be alive. And I started apologizing. She said, no, don't apologize. I'm so thankful that you're here, and that maybe you can stop any of the rest from happening. And she said, this is my friend, and she wants to talk to you. So this woman started talking to us, and she said, I have an 18-year-old young man, my son, his name is Mateo, and he refused to come today. But she said, when you were going through the list of suicide signs, she said, he's nailing every one of them. Will you please come talk to him? We said, of course we'll come talk to him. So one of the young men in our group who had also tried to commit suicide, and thank God he was unsuccessful, he said, I want to talk to Mateo. I was like, fantastic, come on. So we piled in the back of this little truck, and we prayed on the way, and this mom said, now look, we're going into this little village, it's called La Blanca, and the priest there is not going to be happy that you guys who are Christians are coming in. So you got to sneak in and don't let him see you, because if he sees you, he's not going to give us communion anymore, which means we're going to go to hell, which none of that's true, but that's what she believed. So, you know, here's 6 or 7 Americans. We stand out like crazy trying to sneak into this village. It was ridiculous. We get to her house, we sit down, and our young man begins to talk to Mateo. When they were finished talking, and they talked for a long time, Mateo, you know, he admitted, yes, I want to live, and we began to talk. And so our young man said, hey, come back to the camp with us. Just come back with us. And so the mom gave him permission, so he went with us, and he stayed the rest of the week at the camp with us. And at the end, the last night, he was crying, and he was thanking the group for loving him so much. And he said, why do y'all love me so much? And one of our girls hollered out, it's because we love Jesus, and we're supposed to love you, and that not just supposed to, but we do. We love you. He goes, I want Jesus. And so there was a lot of conversation, and at the end we gave him a shirt that had a Bible verse on it and the name of our school and all this stuff. And he gets in the truck for the driver to take him back to La Blanca and to his house. And he has the shirt on, which has a Bible verse on it. And my son actually, and the young man that had been talking to him from our group all week, jumped in the back of the truck too, and they were going to go with him. And as they started out, I saw that he had this shirt, and I was like, stop. And the driver, you know, stops, and the kids in the back of the truck, my son was like, Mom, what are you doing? I was like, Mateo, you know, you have that shirt on. You can't go back into your village and back to your house. If anybody sees you with that shirt on and they tell the priest, y'all are all going to be in a lot of trouble, especially your mom, but you're going to be in trouble too. And I loved this. Mateo stood up in the truck and he goes, I'm not taking this shirt off. I believe it. And I'm going to walk through those streets with the shirt on. If anybody has a problem with that, that's their problem, not mine. And they left and they took him home. And that was a cool thing too. And one school we were at, it was a huge school. We gave the same program about trying to stop suicide. And when we were done, it was like hundreds of Mexican teens talking with our teens. It was awesome, a lot of energy. And the missionary lady came in and she grabbed me and she said, hey, Jan, I want you to talk to this young lady. And I look and there's a beautiful, I'm talking beautiful, young Mexican teenage girl on the front row, but she's crying. So we went over there and Chris, the missionary, began to interpret for me. And she said, this young lady, her mother has been telling her for months now that she's not worthy to live. And so she said, she turned to the young lady and she said, show her. And so the girl pulled up her sleeves and had very fresh cut marks on her wrist. Not just from cutting, but she had really sliced herself with the intention of not living. And I didn't know what to say. I lifted her wrist up and I kissed her wrist. And I said, look, we love you. More importantly, the Lord loves you. Let us help you. I said, you are beautiful. She really was. She was gorgeous. All the guys on the trip, all the teenagers, our teenagers were like, oh. You're beautiful on the inside as you are on the outside. And she came back and also spent the week with us at camp. She gave her life to the Lord, became a Christian, actually went home, and that same mother that said, you're not worthy to live, ended up coming back with her and also changing her life and giving her life to the Lord, and brought her sister, her other daughter, with her. So that was really cool, but what was really neat was about 2 years later, we were in this same village again, and all of a sudden, we were on stage, and as I came off stage, somebody grabbed me and said, come here, there's somebody that wants to see you and some of the other adults, come here. So we got off the stage, and we go running down to the side, and it was her. And she was out of breath, and I wish I could think of her name. I can't remember her name, but she was out of breath, and she said, listen, I heard that y'all were here. I just had to come see you and say hello. And she threw her arms around us, and we were all hugging, and she said, I'm out of breath because I ran the whole way. She said, we're in final exams. And I'm in between final exams, but there was no way I wasn't going to come see you guys. Love y'all. I got to go. And she turned around and ran back however many miles to get back to her school and finish her exam. So that was a cool story. It was a cool thing. All right, where are we at?
We can do one more.
Oh, how many minutes are we at?
41.
41?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we're real close. And if you're more comfortable sitting, you can sit.
Do what?
If you're more comfortable sitting,
Yeah,
you
I'm
can
good.
sit. Okay.
So,
Let's see. Do you have any like not typical Miss Jan stories, like crazy teenage years or? Because I know you're a prankster.
do what?
I know you're a prankster too.
Yeah. I can't tell you the pranks.
That's true.
You went with us once or twice.
Twice.
So what pranks did we pull on y'all's trip? Remember?
With the officers, and the boys with the candy.
Oh, stole the candy?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, that was a great one.
That
The
was
policeman
good.
arrested.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Pranks.
Or what about, I don't know if this is a good story at all, but remember when some of us forked your yard?
Tricked him?
No, we forked your yard when we put forks in your yard.
Yeah. You were part of that group? Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so I did not deserve this. I don't ever play tricks or pranks on anybody. However, so my mission team from school decided they were going to play a prank on me, and we had just moved in to a new house in a new neighborhood, this really big yard. We didn't know anybody yet, and it was close to Halloween. And we get up one morning, and our entire front yard has been forked. F-O-R-K-E-D, forked. I'm talking hundreds of forks. And my husband's like, okay, well, Jen, you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to clean them up because it's your team, and they're coming after you from some prank you probably played on them. I was like, never. I would never play any pranks. Oh, man. So I'm out in the yard. It's taking forever. I'm trying to pull up these forks one by one, and they're everywhere, impaled into our grass. And this neighbor, which I have not met, she comes pulling in my driveway, and she gets out of her car, and she goes, so all the neighbors are talking about y'all. I went, well, why? And she goes, well, and she points to my yard, and she said, you know, we like to keep our yards really nice. And I said, we do too. And she goes, so it's almost Halloween, so all the neighbors are talking about when you're in the street, those look like tiny little not cemetery, but tombstones, little white tombstones everywhere. So is that what that is? Y'all are decorating for like Halloween? I said, no, we're just aerating the yard. Not really. I said, no, actually, believe it or not, it's a group of teenagers that I teach that thought it would be funny to put all these forks in my yard, and I hope it never happens again, believe me. And she was like, I cannot believe they would do that to you. And I said, well, believe it or not, actually, that's kind of a good sign when they do something like that to you. It kind of means they like you. They like you? And I said, well, yeah, that really means they like you. And she was like, okay, well, seems pretty odd to me. And she just got in her car and drove away. And then I spent the next 2 hours picking up forks out of the yard. So.
Okay. That was
Done?
good.
How many
Yeah.
did you do?
We're done. We're 45 minutes.